I've leveled your parents' home to build one for my parents. What? I was unable to grasp the situation immediately and looked utterly perplexed. Kate, you look so bewildered. Apparently, my dumbfounded expression amused my in-laws, as they laughed. What do you mean by leveling it to build a house for your parents? Well, that house will belong to you now that your parents have passed, right? I heard from Tyler that you live near your childhood home for that reason. That's right. My brother lives far away and has no intention of taking it over. Your parents probably let you live nearby for you to inherit it, right? It seems Tyler and his parents have misunderstood something. Wanting to clear up the misunderstanding quickly, I said, "What? That's not my house." At my response, Tyler and his parents were the ones looking confused this time. What do you mean it's not your house? After this, Tyler would face an incredible fate due to his mistake. I am Kate Baker, a 45-year-old housewife married for 10 years. My husband, Tyler, and I met through a family introduction. I had always wanted to continue working even after getting married, and Tyler fully understood that. Thus, although we married when I was 35, we have no children. Tyler had been a company employee in New York until we got married. In fact, he was about to be transferred to a local branch when we were introduced. It was perhaps coincidental, but for me, it was convenient as I could continue working without having to quit my job. I had lived at my parents' home until I got married, but after marriage, I started living in an apartment just a short walk from there. I have an older brother who is 10 years my senior. He started a business in New York and rarely comes back home. Being a workaholic like him, he is in his mid-50s and has never married. I have always followed in his footsteps. Thus, I also became as much of a workaholic as he is. However, recently, some troublesome people have started to interfere with my life. These are my in-laws who live in the neighboring state. My father-in-law worked until last year and retired at 75, while my mother-in-law, a housewife, goes wherever my father-in-law goes. They seem like a happily married couple at first glance. However, with my father-in-law's retirement, the troublesome behavior of these in-laws began. Despite being in his mid-70s, my father-in-law loves driving. He frequently visits our home, which is 10 miles away, often timing his visits to coincide with my return from work. This continued for more than half a year. One day, when I returned home late after overtime, my in-laws were there, drinking with Tyler as they waited. "Oh, Kate, you're late. We started dinner without you." He said this while eating the dinner I had prepared in advance. Moreover, when they visit on weekday nights, they plan to stay over from the beginning. Tyler, being their son, naturally stays up late drinking with them. Despite my fatigue, I have to entertain my in-laws. However, if this continues, it will affect my work. So, I waited until my in-laws had settled down for the night and quietly spoke to Tyler. "Hey, could you please limit your parents' visits to once or twice a month, only on weekends?" I tried asking him, but Tyler did not comply and looked displeased. "Come on. Dad worked hard until his mid-70s. Plus, he won't be able to drive for much longer. So, let him do as he pleases for now. Even so, I can't keep this up. It would be better if Dad went out somewhere else instead of just our place." As I countered, Tyler's mood worsened even more. Then, with a click of his tongue, he went into the bedroom where his parents were sleeping. I had to clean up alone after everyone had finished drinking. As I was tidying up, I heard Tyler's voice from the bedroom. He was apparently still awake and talking to his mother. "Mom, Kate's been saying she doesn't want you coming over too much." Although Tyler looked displeased, he seemed to understand. However, I wondered what his mother thought of the way he asked. It must have sounded like I was treating my in-laws poorly. Just then, Tyler came out of the bedroom. "Kate. Mom's calling you." As I expected, his mother was upset, and I ended up having to listen to her nag. "Kate. You live near your own parents and disregard your husband's? What kind of attitude is that?" "No, that's not what I meant. I regretted having asked Tyler for help. After a while, my mother-in-law's nagging continued. Besides, you're our daughter-in-law, yet why are you living near your parents' home? You should be living near us, that's only proper. That's because Tyler's and my company are close from here. No matter how I explained, my mother-in-law only responded with, all you have are excuses. I was stuck listening to this until past 1 a.m., even though I had work the next day. However, for a while after that, my in-laws did not visit our house. They seemed to understand a bit, complaining as they did, and I was relieved and focused on my work. But a few months later, I suddenly received a call from my mother-in-law. Breathing heavily, she said, "What's wrong, Mother?" "Kate. Come to your parents' house right away. Your mother has suddenly collapsed." "My parents' house? Why are you there?" I couldn't comprehend the situation immediately and my mind went blank. However, my mother-in-law was clearly in a panic and kept talking. "Never mind that now. Just come quickly." Urged by my mother-in-law, I hurriedly left the house. If my mother really had collapsed, I needed to call an ambulance. Although my parents' house was only about a 5-minute walk, I drove there in my haste. When I arrived, an ambulance was already parked in front of the house. I immediately got out of the car and rushed toward the ambulance. "Mom." Hearing my voice, my in-laws turned to look at me. "Ah, Kate, you're just in time. Get on the ambulance and accompany your mother." I was already planning to do so, but what on earth had happened? My father was already inside the ambulance. "Dad, what happened?" My father looked down quietly and said, "Your mother has been enduring a lot of pain." "Enduring? What has she been enduring?" Before I could ask further, the ambulance arrived at the hospital. As my mother was taken into the treatment room, my father explained the situation to me, and I felt a tightness in my chest. It was my fault for asking my in-laws not to visit our house too often. Since then, they had been visiting my parents' house instead. And they had been telling my mother that I was being cruel to them, complaining endlessly about my lack of discipline. My gentle-natured mother didn't talk back, just apologized to my in-laws. For several months, my overbearing in-laws continued visiting my parents' house frequently. My mother, trying to be hospitable, ended up cooking dinner and even hosting them overnight. The stress from this reached its peak and caused her sudden collapse. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I had been focusing on my work, relieved that my in-laws had stopped visiting us. I had no idea that my parents' home was going through such an ordeal. I was furious with myself for not having visited my parents more often. All of this happened because of me. No, it's not your fault. Your mother had a chronic illness, it's not something you could have controlled. My father comforted me, though he was probably the one who felt the worst. All I could do was pray for my mother's recovery. However, despite our prayers, my mother passed away that night. The funeral was attended only by close relatives, including my brother who had rushed from New York after hearing of her critical condition. Tyler missed the funeral citing urgent work, and my in-laws, despite being informed of the time and place, did not show up. My father, having lost his beloved partner, was enveloped in grief. I gently called out to my father, "Dad, are you going to be okay on your own? Maybe it's time I started living with you." My father looked up and responded gently, "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine alone. You should continue living with Tyler as you have been." As he said this, my father had a complicated expression on his face. The truth is, my father honestly found Tyler difficult to deal with. For that reason, he was inwardly pleased by my words, but he had no choice but to refuse. Tyler also had work as an excuse, but it was likely he just didn't want to face my father. After the funeral, I made sure to visit my father as often as possible. It seemed that even my in-laws had stopped visiting my parents' home after my mother's passing. I resolved to do my best to care for my father as I couldn't for my mother. Yet, without ever overcoming his grief, my father quietly passed away soon after my mother. Tyler and my in-laws did attend his funeral. His funeral was attended by over 40 people, including his former colleagues. While everyone mourned his passing, my in-laws were somewhat out of place, bombarding me with questions about the family home during the service. Kate, how many square meters was your family home? You mentioned it's been in the family for generations, but how many exactly? The house seems to have been rebuilt, but when was that? Other attendees looked on coldly, but my in-laws didn't seem to care about the surroundings. While mindful of the other attendees, I whispered to my in-laws, "Please, let's talk about this after the funeral." After making my request, my in-laws silently sulked. Following the funeral, I took some time off to visit my brother to discuss what to do with the family home. Tyler was supposed to join me, but he couldn't take time off from work, so I went alone. My brother was puzzled to see me by myself. What happened to Tyler? Even if he can't stay for a few days, he should at least be able to make it today. I can't believe he's that busy with work. That made me think too. Maybe Tyler is just pretending to be busy to suit his own needs. My brother laughed in agreement. Probably. He might just not want to deal with the hassle. I laughed along with him, feeling a sense of relief, and decided to spend a week there using up all my remaining paid leave. After discussing everything thoroughly, including the house and property where I grew up, I left my brother's house. I had planned to head straight home, but there was still time until evening. So, I decided to head to my parents' house, which I hadn't yet begun to sort through. However, as I approached my childhood home, I was shocked by an unexpected sight. The land where the house should have been was completely cleared. Thinking, no way. I parked the car in front and looked around. No matter where I looked, there was no trace of my childhood home left. I decided to inform Tyler immediately and returned to our house. There, not only Tyler but also my in-laws were present. I had rushed up the stairs to our third-floor apartment, so I was out of breath. Seeing me like this, my mother-in-law grinned and spoke. "Oh, Kate. What's the matter? Why such a rush?" Mother, no, it's Tyler. It's serious." As I said that, Tyler appeared. "What, you're back already? More importantly, what's so serious?" Our family home, when I went there, it was gone." As I said this breathlessly, Tyler and my in-laws burst out laughing. "And here I was wondering why you were in such a panic. That was it? I've leveled your parents' home to build one for my parents." What? I was unable to grasp the situation immediately and looked utterly perplexed. "Kate, you look so bewildered." Apparently, my dumbfounded expression amused my in-laws, as they laughed. "What do you mean by leveling it to build a house for your parents?" As I asked this with a pale face, my father-in-law answered. "Well, that house will belong to you now that your parents have passed, right? I heard from Tyler that you live near your childhood home for that reason." "That's right. My brother lives far away and has no intention of taking it over. Your parents probably let you live nearby for you to inherit it, right?" I again looked confused. However, this wasn't because I couldn't grasp the situation, but because I was dumbfounded by the gross misunderstanding of Tyler and my in-laws. Yet Tyler continued speaking, ignoring my reaction. "Anyway, the sooner the better. If it's going to be Kate's house, it's mine too. So, it was good that I decided to demolish it, right?" As Tyler asked this, I tried to clear up the misunderstanding quickly. "What? That's not my house." At my reply, this time Tyler and my in-laws looked confused. "Huh? What do you mean it's not your house?" "What I mean is, the land has been in my family for generations, but the house is registered in my brother's name." As I explained this, Tyler turned pale. Our parents had decided that the eldest son, my brother, would inherit the house, even though he lived far away. That's why I moved out when I got married. My parents had also mentioned that it wouldn't be appropriate for my sister-in-law and her husband to live in the house that my brother might return to. When we got married, I'm sure I told you that, Tyler. I really don't remember that. Tyler continued looking pale and unsure of what to do. My in-laws, concerned by his appearance, spoke up. What's wrong, Tyler? You look pale. Is there some problem with that house? If it belongs to Kate's brother, we can negotiate, right? Tyler scratched his head, struggling for an answer. I smiled slightly and spoke for him. Well, it's definitely a problem. Tyler has destroyed something belonging to his president. President? Yes, the company Tyler is working for is a branch of my brother's company. My in-laws seemed unaware that their son's president was my brother. Indeed, at our wedding, influenced by my brother, we didn't tell Tyler's family that he was the president of the company. Before getting married, Tyler had worked at the main office in New York. At that time, my brother had introduced me to Tyler. And when we got married, my brother ordered Tyler to transfer to this branch. The reason for the transfer was actually Tyler's poor sales performance, but he was happy to live near his parents. However, he had never imagined targeting my family's property. By the way, Tyler's parents' house was old and cramped. They always complained about their own home. But now that they knew the property was actually owned by the president, my brother, Tyler couldn't just take over the land. Damn. I had no idea it was in the president's name. What's going to happen to me now? Will I have to compensate, or will I be fired? Hearing this, my mother-in-law suddenly looked anxious. Just because it's the president's house doesn't change the fact that he's family. Can't you talk it out and get it handed over? Don't be silly. That's impossible. I thought my mother-in-law was being incredibly naive. Tyler had been hired by my brother's company when he couldn't find a job elsewhere. He was already in a difficult position with my brother, and now he had made a serious mistake. Seeing that they wouldn't get the land they thought would be theirs, my in-laws began to show signs of panic. Tyler, what are you planning to do? You said we would live together because Kate's parents passed away before us, so we already sold the other house. Tyler, yelled at by his father-in-law, crouched down, holding his head. Then, my in-laws asked me, "Can't you do something about it?" Even though they asked, there was nothing I could do as I wasn't the owner. In this case, I really don't know what decision my brother will make. When I said that, my mother-in-law became furious. Are you still Tyler's wife? Isn't it part of being married to help your husband when he's in trouble? That's true, mother. But he demolished the house without the owner's permission, so even if I wanted to support him, there's nothing I can do. Oh. What's wrong? It looks like you remembered something. I had forgotten something important. Wait. What happened to the heirlooms from my parents that were in the house? When I pressed them, my in-laws awkwardly looked away and said, "Oh. Those things?" The contractor said he couldn't demolish the house with them inside, so we disposed of them. Kate Baker, what? You disposed of all of them? Each item was filled with memories of my parents. That they had disposed of all of them was unforgivable to me. Tyler was still crouching down. My in-laws said they preferred I think of something to help Tyler rather than the heirlooms. However, I ignored the three of them and immediately left the house. As I was leaving, my in-laws shouted after me from behind. "Hey! Are you just going to leave Tyler and run away?" "Yes. Do you not care what happens to your own husband?" Ignoring their shouts, I hurried to my brother's place. On the way to New York, I called my brother. When I explained the situation over the phone, my brother sighed deeply. Tyler really is a handful, isn't he? He didn't even check who the owner was. I'm upset about the house, but what's unforgivable is that he disposed of our parents' belongings without permission. Well, let's discuss this when you get here. After hanging up, I felt uneasy about Tyler and my in-laws while heading to New York. Upon arriving at my brother's house, we started discussing our family home and our parents' belongings again. In fact, I vented my frustrations about Tyler and my in-laws to my brother. After listening quietly, my brother made a suggestion. Leave it to me for now. Kate, it might be hard for you to go home. But since you have work, why not stay with relatives nearby for a while? He then called a relative who lived locally and explained the situation. For a while, I would commute to my job from the relative's house. A few days later, my brother called Tyler to the headquarters. Tyler reluctantly made his way to the headquarters. At that time, I followed my brother's suggestion and stared at the smartphone screen. The screen showed the interior of the president's office at my brother's company. There, I could see Tyler awkwardly opening the door and entering. President. What did you want to see me about? You know already, right? I called you here to thank you for disposing of that house on my behalf. Tyler, surprised by my brother's unexpected words, widened his eyes. It seemed my brother was acting. He intended to put Tyler at ease before getting to the main issue. Huh? Are you not angry about me disposing of the family home without permission? What are you talking about? I'm not returning to the local area, so I was wondering what to do with the family home. The demolition costs are no small matter, right? It must have been expensive to demolish. Yes. Though Tyler responded, he seemed unsure about how much the demolition had cost. Likely, my in-laws had paid for it to build their own house on the site. Noticing this, my brother didn't mention the demolition costs further and changed the topic. By the way, Kate mentioned that all our parents' heirlooms were disposed of. Is that true? Yes. Well, there didn't seem to be any valuable items that were hard to dispose of. When Tyler answered, my brother furrowed his brow. That's strange. Dad had a hobby of collecting antiques. And I heard I gave Mom expensive jewelry for their golden wedding anniversary. Kate said Mom had kept it carefully. Wasn't that there either? Tyler looked around nervously as my brother pressed him. Indeed, the value of Dad's antiques and Mom's jewelry should have been worth hundreds of thousands of dollars if appraised. Even an amateur could see that dismissing them as junk was odd. As Tyler's face grew pale, my brother smiled slyly. I was considering covering the demolition costs, but if all the valuable items left in the house were disposed of. Actually, I had them appraised once, and they were worth $800,000 in total. $800,000? Tyler's eyes widened as much as they possibly could, and he stepped back. My brother, as if delivering the final blow, said, Well, if you accidentally threw them away, it can't be helped, but it's strange to accidentally dispose of such valuable items. It seems more like there was malice, don't you think? Tyler, panicked, knelt down on the spot. I'm so sorry. All the heirlooms are with my parents. We will return everything, please, forgive us. So it was a lie after all, huh? Just as my brother said this, he started making a call from the office phone. The person on the other end seemed to be my father-in-law. My brother was asking for the returned heirlooms that Tyler had confessed to having. However, my father-in-law had sold some of the antiques to cover the demolition costs. Furthermore, my mother-in-law had taken a liking to the jewelry and refused to give it back. Hearing this, my brother looked at Tyler again. As you heard, some of the heirlooms won't be coming back. What will you do now, Tyler? Tyler was speechless, sweating on his forehead. Certainly, Tyler must have known that his father-in-law had used the money from the sold antiques to demolish the family home. Even if there was severance pay, it was unlikely that the stingy father-in-law would easily provide such a high amount. With a deep sigh, my brother then said to Tyler, Now that it's come to this, you have no choice but to take responsibility for demolishing our family home without my permission as the owner. Additionally, you must compensate financially for the heirlooms that were sold. What? You're saying I have to compensate? Yes. It was you who suggested building a new home on the family land to bring your parents there, so you must take full responsibility. Tyler slumped down completely, collapsing on the spot. But the reprimands from his brother didn't stop there. And that was the punishment from me as your brother. Now, as the president, I will announce the sanctions against you, Tyler. Your sales performance was poor at the headquarters, which is why you were sent to the branch. However, it seems your performance did not improve there either. After saying this, my brother glanced at me through the screen. It seemed he intended to avenge me. Well, let's put work aside. More importantly, it seems you have been causing your wife, Kate, a lot of distress at home. I was willing to value our relationship as relatives if you, even if not competent at work, at least took good care of your family. Huh, what do you mean? Tyler. You should understand, having worked at our company for so many years, that our employees are like family. However, I cannot continue to see you as family when you've been causing my sister such distress. Do you understand what I'm getting at? My brother glared sharply at Tyler. Then, Tyler, sweating profusely, timidly asked his brother. Are you saying I'm fired? Exactly. My brother made a thumbs-up gesture close to Tyler's face as he confirmed it. However, Tyler did not remain silent. With all due respect, President, I think it's inappropriate to mix work and personal issues. And where is the evidence that I made Kate suffer? Should I have Kate tell you herself? Tyler, noticing my laughter, stared intently at the screen showing me. Kate. Is this a video call on a messaging app? Have you been eavesdropping all along? No, it's not that Kate has been eavesdropping. I asked her to listen in silently. Isn't that the same thing? Tyler, his face turning red, trembled with clenched fists. Despite his own inappropriate actions, he was the one getting angry. Listening to the conversation, I felt increasingly pathetic about Tyler. Tyler. Why did you lie about throwing away the heirlooms and shrug off making me suffer? I can't trust you anymore. Hearing my tearful voice, my brother said to Tyler. See, her distress is proof enough. Also, I received a letter from our father before he passed away. My brother then took out an envelope and read the letter inside. According to the letter, my father had informed my in-laws about my mother's chronic illness, yet my mother-in-law constantly made spiteful remarks to her. The worsening of my mother's illness was also due to the accumulated stress. It seemed that my father was also upset with my in-laws. Perhaps my father disliked Tyler because he never admonished his parents as their son. Tyler. I hope you understand now. I'm concerned for Kate's well-being if we continue to associate with you and your parents. I know we shouldn't mix personal and professional issues, but for your own good, I need you to resign from the company as well. Tyler looked grim as he heard this. I spoke to him through the screen. I've also come to realize that we can't go on together. I have a divorce form ready here, so please sign it when you come back. Tyler glanced sideways at me. His eyes seemed tearful as he murmured to me. Was it so wrong to care about my parents? Tyler, it's not that caring for your parents is wrong. You just couldn't detach yourself from parents who always pampered you. If you truly cared about your family, you wouldn't have imposed your parents on your wife like this. Tyler might have just been spoiled. Realizing this, he fell silent without any retort. A few days later, he signed the divorce papers, and we were officially divorced. I didn't demand compensation from Tyler, but instead, I insisted that his parents return the heirlooms and compensate for the ones they had sold. In fact, among the antiques that were sold, there was one particularly valuable item, which my father-in-law unknowingly sold at a low price. Consequently, my ex-in-laws ended up losing their home and much of their retirement savings due to the reimbursement for the antiques. After the divorce, I cut off all contact with Tyler and his parents. However, I heard about Tyler's current situation through someone else. Since being fired, he has struggled to find another job. Having no particular skills, his employment options were limited. My ex-in-laws had sold their home, so they were living in Tyler's apartment. Originally, the rent for that apartment was manageable only with my earnings. For a while, they managed to get by on what little was left of my ex-father-in-law's retirement fund, but eventually, they began to fall behind on rent. That's when the landlord contacted me, and I learned about their current situation. When asked about the rent, it was clear I wasn't going to pay it for them. Sometime later, Tyler messaged me, saying they had been evicted from the apartment because they couldn't see how to pay the rent. We have nowhere to go. Could you please consider getting back together with me and taking care of my parents? I regretted not blocking his number when I inadvertently marked the message as read. Deciding I no longer wanted any interaction, I blocked all his contacts. I now live in a place unknown to Tyler or his parents, ensuring we won't meet again. I quit my job and moved to New York. My brother sold the plot where our family home once stood and bought a 3-room apartment in New York with the money, asking me to live with him. While I planned to look for a job in New York, he asked me to help with his business. I feel bad always being helped by you, brother. No, it's fine. Dad asked me to take care of you if anything happened to him and Mom. I was surprised that my father had been so concerned about my future. I didn't know that. Well, I'll make sure to contribute to the company and be of help to you from now on. That's reassuring to hear. After all, you're my sister. Growing up, I always admired and followed my brother, striving to be like him. He rescued me from this crisis. Maybe we siblings weren't lucky in marriage. However, from now on, we plan to grow the business together as a team. That's our path forward as siblings.